Hey everybody, welcome to a new Let's Play series that we're going to be embarking upon for the game Crusader Kings 2, featuring the new Conclave expansion. I am Nerdstalgic, and something that had been brought up to me by some people on both YouTube and on Twitch was that they really liked the idea of the game Crusader Kings 2, but they were a little bit frustrated, stymied, whatever word you want to use, about getting into the game, because there is a bit of a learning curve. There is a lot to learn about. There's a lot of buttons, a lot of numbers, and it can be hard to kind of make sense of them all. So I did mention that I had thought about making somewhat of a tutorial series for those people, and here we go. We're going to do it. Now this is going to be a series that's probably going to progress at a little bit of a slower pace. We're probably not going to go too fast. We want to keep everything slow so that I can explain my thinking on pretty much everything that I do, because if I don't do that, then it's not really a tutorial series, is it? Now, if you look around on the internet, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to say, you should probably stick to Ireland. Everybody calls Ireland Tutorial Island for a reason. And the reason that Ireland is typically called the tutorial island is because it's not because you start out super powerful. In fact, the opposite is actually true. You don't really start out super powerful. You actually start out super weak. But what makes it good for new players is that you start out super weak and all the people around you start out super weak. So relatively speaking, you don't have a whole lot of threats going on when you start Ireland. Now, when you choose your start date, you obviously you can choose one of these preset dates. You can also choose a year of your own choosing through the menu after you choose this. I normally like to start in the early Middle Ages at 769 AD. However, that might not be a great start for a new player, and the reason for that is within about 30 years, there's going to be an event where the Vikings who live over here are going to get boats. And what's going to happen is once they get boats, they're going to start raiding. And they're going to raid you constantly, especially if you're in Ireland. So 769 might not be a great start for somebody who is a new player. Instead, what might be better, and holy crap, went all the way back. Okay. I swear I've played this before. Okay, so we can click the bookmark dates over here. What might be better would be to click on this Stamford Bridge start, which is the original start date for the vanilla Crusader Kings 2. Now, if you start here, you can notice, Norway here is going to start out as feudal, I do believe. Why is Iron Man disabled? It really doesn't matter, I guess. If we turn it off, then we will have actually less autosaves. But all of these people should, see, they're Catholic, so they're not going to be raiding. Suamanusco, they actually will still be, I believe, tribal. So that's a Norse pagan religion. Well, or just pagan religion. So they might still be doing a little bit of raiding, but I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. Yeah, if we look at the religion map mode, you can see we still do have a little bit of Slavic here. We have some Romuva, but by and large, a lot of the raiding is out of the game by 1066. It also has the nice benefit of the fact that Spain is a little bit more Catholic at this point. So you maybe don't have to worry so much about a holy war going off. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So we're going to do a 1066 start, I believe, and we are going to go ahead and start Ireland. If you want something a little bit more challenging than Ireland, you could do a Wales start and probably be okay. The thing you have to watch out for here is England is fully unified at this point, but they do start out in a war with France. Of course, you know the war. You know the war I'm talking about. So we're going to be starting out in Ireland. Now, I would recommend if you look here, you can see everybody on Ireland here. It's a bunch of just counts. Well, here we have county, petty kingdom. So this guy actually does start as a petty king. Petty king is just another term for duke. So that means he is a duke. He's the Duke of Connacht, which means that he has a ducal level claim. So if we go here, we can see he is the Duke of Connacht, which if you play the game, you would know that the Duchy of Connacht also has Briefny. Now, this is important because what this means is that this guy is going to start the game with a de jure claim against this county. Now, in Crusader Kings 2, the way that you acquire territory, you can't just willy-nilly run off and attack people. You have to have what's called a casus belli, a CB, a claim on that title. So, if I start out as Sildara here, who is only a count, I'm not probably going to start out with any claims at all. So if I want to take over Dublin here, that means that I have to figure out a way to get a claim on this title in Dublin. And there are a few different ways that we will cover that you can get claims if you don't start your character with them. But we also can notice here that this guy, Petty Kingdom of Mumu, the Merchant of Mumu here, is a little bit stronger. He starts out with 2 counties, and he controls, he does not control both of them. He only controls this one. He has a vassal here in Urmuhain, or as I call it, Osmond, or Ormond. Yeah, Ormond. This is Desmond, Ormond, and Thomond. The reason that it's showing up as these names, I think these are the, I want to say that these are the Celtic names. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me in the video, in the comments. So, he's a little bit stronger, and the Duchy of... this duchy right here is also going to start with a claim on this. So it's very, very easy with this guy to blob in Ireland pretty quickly. So this is who we're going to start at, and this is who I recommend that you start as too. So what we do, we pick him, and then we're going to hit play. Play. We're going to load up the game, and you're going to get greeted by this. Now the game does try to teach you some things, but there's just so much in Crusader Kings 2 that it's impossible to learn everything from screens like this. So we will go over these though. It says in Crusader Kings 2 you play as a succession of medieval rulers from a single dynasty. There's no set goal, so it's it's kind of sandboxy. You get to define your own fun. But the world is filled with ambitious rivals. Secure more land to increase your power and protect your family. Generally speaking, your goal is just to grow. You cannot hold infinite amounts of land yourself. To expand, you'll need to rely on vassal rulers. Keep them happy with titles and gifts, lest they decide to revolt. The game will end in 1452 if your line can stay in power that long now. Don't feel bad if you never make it to 1452. I've never made it to 1452, and I have hundreds and hundreds of hours into this game. As a ruler, your first priority is to secure an heir. If you do not have a legitimate heir, now what that means, legitimate, means an heir that shares your bloodline. If you do not have a legitimate heir when your character dies, the game ends. Other pressing matters appear as alerts along the top of the screen. So these are what it means when it says alerts. Crusader Kings 2 is a pausable real-time game. That means you can issue commands both while the game is paused and when the clock is running. To pause or unpause the game, click the date in the upper right corner or press the space bar. So you can click this, which I'm not going to click it right now because that would unpause it, but you can click it or you can just hit space bar. Normally I just hit the space bar because it's just, to me, it's easier than coming up here and clicking this little box. Use the plus and minus symbols to speed time up or slow it down. Keyboard shortcuts for speeding up. If you look at your numpad, you have a plus button. That speeds it up. You got a minus button that slows it down. Crusader Kings 2 takes place on a fully 3D map. You can zoom in and out using your mouse scroll wheel. Holding down the scroll wheel and moving the mouse lets you pan. You can always reset the map by pressing backspace. And now it's going to tell us a little bit about our start. So we are starting as an Irish Catholic feudal. You're playing as an Irish Catholic king, which technically we're not really a king, we're a duke. But yeah. Irish culture affects no special features. Some cultures do get some special features. Irish is not one of them. Now it's going to tell us about feudal. What does it mean to be feudal. So feudal government revolves around the oath between liege and vassal, and feudal lords can only directly own so many holdings before they must start to rely on vassals, whose loyalty may vary. ... There are several succession laws to pick between, each with its own merits and demerits. The centralization law controls the maximum size of your domain, which your domain is how many counties you, or even just holdings, you directly have. So we'll get more into that later, but that's a really important number. And the number of direct vassals you can have. If you should convert to a religion in the Muslim group, your government form will change to Iqta. So here are some of the features. You can hold castle and fort holdings without penalties. What that means is when you have a holding, a castle is a holding, a fort is a holding, a city is a holding, and a temple is a holding. If you have a castle holding, you will get taxes and you'll get soldiers, which we call levies in this game. When you have a castle, you will reap the full amount of those with no penalty. However, if you personally hold a city or a temple, you will not get the full amount that would give to a bishop or a mayor, because you're not a bishop or a mayor, you are a feudal lord. So you'll be penalized. You will still get soldiers and taxes from those things, but not at the same amount as what a vassal who has the right title would. You can hold tribal holdings without penalties for provinces with your culture. Being that we're starting in 1066, this probably will not have any effect on our game whatsoever. Most of the world at this point that is Catholic is feudal. Can build castle, city, temple, and fort holdings. So that's kind of what we just talked about a minute ago. Castles, cities, temples, and forts. Can revoke titles from tribal government vassals of another religion without objections from other vassals. So if for some reason we did take over a tribal territory, we could revoke that person's title, that tribal lord's title. Say if he was, the lord of a county, we could say, no, you're not anymore. And all of our vassals who are feudal, they wouldn't care. Normally, when you revoke somebody's title, when you say you're a duke and you have a count under you, and you take their title away from them, not only are you going to majorly piss off that person that you take the title from, but it's also going to put a little bit of fear in the rest of your vassals, all the rest of your counts and your mayors and your bishops, that you might do the same thing to them. Tribal government vassals are not included in vassal limit calculation. Okay, now we're going to talk about Catholicism. Catholicism is one of the oldest branches of Christianity and the one that has had the biggest impact on the history of Europe. The formal head of the religion is the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. Catholic bishops may pay tax to the Pope rather than their secular liege. So what this means is, for a Catholic ruler, each county is probably going to have one temple holding. That temple holding is normally going to be ran by a bishop, unless you personally hold it, which I don't recommend. That bishop will have an opinion score that will tell how much he likes the Pope and how much he likes you. And depending on who he likes more, that is who he is going to give his money to. If he likes the Pope more than you, he's going to give his taxes to the Pope. If he likes you more than the Pope, he's going to pay you rather than the Pope. Catholic rulers can set up anti-popes. Now, anti-pope is not something that you need to worry about as a beginner to the game. Basically, it is just another pope that it's kind of a puppet pope that like a king or an emperor might set up so that they can get around working with the other pope. And it's kind of a bad thing. Pope can excommunicate Catholic characters. If you're familiar with the Catholic Church, what an excommunication is when somebody is expelled from the church. And during this time period that we're playing in right now, being excommunicated from the Catholic Church is a very bad thing. The Pope can grant divorces. The Pope can grant the invasion casus belli. The Pope can grant claims on titles. The Pope can call for a crusade. Rulers can order adult unlanded courtiers to take the vows. So if you have somebody in your court who is unlanded, you can order them to either become a nun or a monk. There's always a pope, landed or not. So that means even if Rome falls under somebody else's control, even if the pope does not have a personal holding, he will still be the pope. So that's that. All right. So let's take a look at this first screen that you see. And I'm just going to go through here and explain some things. This is your portrait. This is you, King Murchad of Mumu. It even says in little green letters underneath the name, you. We are the petty king of Mumu. And you can see some more information. Age 39. Reigning in Bunna Rate. Tuadum Munhain. Mumhain. Religious head, Pope Alexander II. And it also tells us that there's a shortcut key F2. If we hit F2, it's going to bring up a little bit more information about us. So we can see here is our coat of arms, Petty Kingdom of Mumu. It even tells us when we took power, 1st July 1063. And it will tell us the line of succession for this title. It also tells us what our succession type is. We are agnatic, cognatic, gavelkind, which I will go over in just a moment. We can see that the line of succession has 6 people in it. And number 1 is Brian MacMurchad Ua Brianen, which we can see our family name is Ua Brian. I don't even know how to say that. We're just going to say Ua Brian. So if we look here, it looks like our line of succession is pretty damn secure, because if you look at the top 6 people, they're all in our family. So even if this guy died, the game's not going to end, because we still have people of our family that can take over. Let's go back to this first screen before we look at this a little bit more. So you're going to see some buttons here. These are buttons that you're going to be pressing an awful lot. They are shortcutted, F3 through F9, although typically I just click them. I'm pretty bad about the shortcut keys in this. The only ones that I really use are spacebar and plus and minus. Everything else I kind of click to get around. So that probably will be a little bit better for our tutorial series anyways, because it's harder to follow those shortcut keys than it is to follow the clicking. So your first button here is your council button. So we're going to click on it. And you can see this is your council. So there are 5 council positions. We have a chancellor. It says the chancellor is your advisor on matters of diplomacy. The position is traditionally considered the highest on the council. So as you can see, the council member will get some benefits from being a chancellor. He will get liege opinion 10. He will get a monthly salary, which will go into his bank account, and he will get prestige from assuming that position. The Chancellor has a few jobs that he can do for us. He can improve diplomatic relations. So what we can do is, if there is somebody, some lord that we wish to improve our relation with, our standing with, we can click this button and we can send him to a county, whichever county we want to improve relations with. You can use this both inside your kingdom and outside your kingdom. So if you wanted to improve your relations with, say, the emperor of the Byzantine Empire, you could do that. But you should also notice that there is a chance to hurt your relations with that lord. And those percentages are directly related to this score right here. So as you can see, this guy, Earl Ragnvald of Urmunhain, has only a diplomacy score of 6. So with a diplomacy score of 6, he is considered a poor diplomat. A general rule of thumb, guys, that you're going to want to look at for these scores, for me at least, what I look at is if it's in the double digits, it's passable. As long as it's 10 or above, I don't frown too much. But when it starts hitting the single digits, that's when I start looking for other options. So we're going to look at probably trying to replace this guy. Another thing that the Chancellor can do is fabricate claims. Now, this is how you get claims on, one of the ways that you can get claims on things that you don't already have claims on. It says, send your Chancellor to fabricate claims on landed titles held by local rulers. Highly skilled Chancellors may even fabricate a claim on a duchy. Only with the become king ambition is it possible to fabricate a claim on a kingdom. So what you would do is say, all right, so this is us. And let's say we really, really want this county here, Osrange. But we don't have a claim on it. So what we could do is we could click this button, and then click here. Our Chancellor would go here immediately. Oh, we'll stop that. And he would begin working towards fabricating the claim. Now, because his score is 6, which is really low, the chance of him fabricating a claim per year is only 3.5%. 3.5%. So it's terrible. He actually has a higher chance of bungling it and notifying the noble that we're trying to fabricate a claim, which is going to have two effects. Effect number one, it's going to piss off the noble. Effect number two, the noble can and often will choose to try to kill your chancellor. The third thing that a chancellor can do is to sow dissent. What sowing dissent is, you send them to a county, and the chancellor works to try to kind of ruffle feathers between that noble and his lieges. So this can be useful whenever you are trying to weaken a rival. Say if we wanted to attack Sildara here, and we wanted him to get less troops from his mayor and his bishop, or probably just his mayor. I think his bishop would be a different thing, but we could sow dissent here. And there's a chance, 10% yearly, that we could cause some sort of a rift to form between the mayor and the count. There's also a chance that he could become discovered, and that would not be good either, because there's a chance that I believe with that event there's also a chance that he could die. So you notice this little fist here. What that means is that he is right now a powerful vassal within our territory, and powerful vassals, after the addition of the conclave expansion, expect to be on the council. If they're not on the council, they get a -30 opinion debuff towards you, and they are free to faction against you, which we'll talk about later. All right, so that's our Chancellor. Whew, you guys following all this so far? Next we have our Marshal. Marshal, kind of the same thing. You can see they get an opinion bump, they get a salary, they get prestige. Now, our Marshal, on the other hand, has a pretty good score. With a skill of 15, he's considered a masterful commander. 15 is nothing to sneeze at. He can do 3 different things. He can suppress revolts. There will be events in the game that will happen that will cause your peasants to have a chance to revolt against you. And if for some reason, sometimes those peasant revolts can have a lot of troops. So if for some reason you want to avoid that, you can click this button and send him to the county that has the revolt risk, and it will remove an equal amount of percentage points to this number. So if he was 6 like this guy, it would be -6%. But since he's got a 15, it's actually -15%, which is really good. Also, suppressed revolts will increase the chance to arrest a character. There will also be times where you will want to arrest characters that are underneath you. Maybe they're plotting against you, or they're plotting against somebody that you don't want them to plot against. They're acting dishonorably. Or maybe you just want to be a tyrant and throw somebody in jail. You can do that too. You would just click this button and send them to the county where that person is, in their court. And then you hit that imprison button, which we'll see later, and boom. Add 15% to that arrest chance. This button is probably the one that you will be using the most of. Train troops. It says, send your marshal to increase the size of your levies in a province. Typically, what you will be doing is you will be clicking this train troops button and putting him in your capital, because you're going to be getting the most levies out of your capital, which for us is this county right here. As you can see, this is also directly related to this score. Levy size plus 37%. So that means that in that province, when we have him assigned to train troops there, it's going to boost the amount of soldiers that we can create from that province, or that we can call up from that province, by almost 40%, which is a pretty big bump. It's very necessary. And also, he will make our levy reinforcement rate go up by almost 100%. Levy reinforcement rate means when you have a soldier killed, how fast will he get replaced? So that's also very important. And there are some random events that can occur. there's a 32% chance, because he has such high Marshal, that we will get levy reinforcements, which even further increases the rate of levy replacement. But there's also a 2% chance every year that some random noble will interfere with the process and slow the reinforcement rate. But as you can see, it's a pretty low chance. The third and final thing that your Marshal can do is research military tech. Now, in Crusader Kings 2, technology is separated into 3 separate categories: military tech, economic tech, and cultural tech. We'll be covering those in probably the next video. However, for the sake of what we're talking about right now, just know that if you do this research military tech, and you put him in a province, you would put him in the province where you have the most military tech, and what that would do is putting him there would increase the spread of that tech to the other counties. See, what happens here is all of your research is usually done, or is done, in your capital. The other counties that you have don't automatically get the research that you did in your capital. Instead, it trickles down to them. So if you want to get some tech, some military tech trickle down quicker, you have to do this. Generally, though, you're probably not going to be doing this with your Marshal. You're probably going to be doing this with your Marshal more than anything. And because it's not really a huge deal. Usually the tech will trickle eventually. Maybe not as fast as what you typically would want, but it'll still get there. There is a chance that you can have a military drill accident, which is 2% chance a year, or you can have military secrets revealed, 4% chance per year. And those events are basically either slow the tech spread rate or increase the tech spread rate, or it could actually be adding points to your tech overall. I'm not too sure. I guess you can see how much I use this. Okay, there is one button that I did kind of miss here, and another thing. This button right here, you see it's on all of these. When you click that, it forbids this counselor from leading armies. Whenever you are assigning leaders for your armies, it's going to look at your counselors and your commanders, and it will automatically assign people based on their war score. However, if there's somebody that you don't want to lead, maybe you don't want somebody that's got, like, say our Chancellor had like a 25 score, which is really high, but he had a decent war score too. Well, whenever somebody goes to battle, there is a chance that they could die. I mean, it's Crusader Kings 2. A lot of things are random. Could be a bad dice roll behind the scenes. He could die. Well, we don't want that to happen, because maybe the next Chancellor might be like this guy, a lousy sack of shit, and his score's only a 6, which is a huge step down. So maybe you just don't want him to lead your troops. I mean, it's really up to you. Typically, I don't click on this too much. I typically just kind of let it fly, but maybe I should do that a little bit more. And then this green number you can see over here, you probably already guessed what that is, but it's the opinion. It's how he feels about you. Now, this is on a scale. It can go from -100, which is terrible, to +100, which is good. And it can... the malices or the bonuses can stack over 100 or below -100. It doesn't just stop at 100. So we can see that this guy here, this Chancellor, he likes us 13. So he's on the positive side, but only barely. And you can even see the reasons why he likes or dislikes us. So right now we have a -3 because of personal diplomacy. That just means interactions that we've had with this character have generally slightly trended towards being negative. Short reign means that we just recently took power, and so there's a little bit of distrust there. As we hold our title for longer, we will start to accrue a positive bonus, which is called long reign, and that can stack up and be very, very important. Gavel kind succession. That's different kinds of succession are thought of better and worse for different. It's kind of confusing, but there are many different kinds of title succession in the game, and depending on what kind of succession you are, different vassals will have a different perception of that. So We are Gavelkind succession right now, which I'll go into more detail, when we talk about the different succession laws. But suffice it to say, Gavelkind succession, he approves of that in a small way, so we get a +5 bonus. He's a Chancellor, so he gets a +10 there. Technology, we get a +9 because of our technological state. We are a foreigner, so we get a -8. If you look, we are Irish, but what is this guy? He's Norwegian. What's a Norwegian doing here? And if you kind of research the history of this area, this was actually, well, they've changed it. At one point in time, the religion or the culture in this county was actually Norse, I believe. But, yeah. There were, I think, Vikings that lived here. So he is a descendant of them. You can even tell from his name is Earl Ragnvald. So yeah, he doesn't necessarily like us too much because we're a foreigner and he kind of distrusts us for that. But we're both humble. We both have the humble trait, which makes us kind of like each other a little bit more. All right. I really want to get through with this before we cut this video off. I do apologize that this is going a little bit long, but I want this tutorial to be, good for people who are ground level, zero knowledge of Crusader Kings, want to get into it. And, something to keep in mind is if you're watching this and there are things that just skip around in the video. You don't got to watch the whole video. Just skip around. Skip around, and because, I'm going to try to go in a very methodical method. If you see something that you can use, take it. If you see something you can't use, just skip it. It's cool, man. But there's probably going to be 1, 2, 3 videos where we just are going to be explaining what's on the screen, because that's a huge part of Crusader Kings. You got to understand what you're seeing on the screen, all these numbers and everything. So I'm going to be going through that at a snail's pace. So, okay. So we're gonna finish this, and then we'll go to a new video and we'll explain some more stuff. So our third member of our council is our steward. Now the steward is directly related to money. He helps us collect taxes and administer our domain. You can see this guy has a stewardship score of 1. Wow. Terrible, terrible, terrible. We're going to have to replace this guy. Unfortunately, he's a powerful vassal, so he expects to be on the council. He's like, oh, yeah, I should be on the council. I'm really cool. Except for the fact that you got a 1 in stewardship. But we'll take care of that here in a minute. All right, so if you look at the things that the steward can do, steward can collect taxes, and this is probably what you're going to be using him the most for. To send your steward to ensure efficient taxation in the country. Now, the bonus to the local tax modifier is directly related to his score. So with a score of 1, whatever county we put him in, it's going to boost the money that we get from that county from taxes by 2.5%. Also, there can be some random events that can happen. He can collect a special tithe, which can be a pretty good amount of money once you get to a bigger kingdom. Special tithe collected, 1% chance yearly. Or peasants can attack the steward trying to collect those extra taxes. 16% chance of happening. He can be wounded. And what happens is you lose prestige for that, or he can even be killed by rabble, which is kind of comical, but anyways. So this will be the one that you're probably using a whole lot as a new player. He can also oversee construction, which makes things build faster. Local build time modifier minus 2.5%. You can also meet a master builder, and you can have construction sabotage. Meeting a master builder, I think that what that is, I actually haven't used this very much, but meeting a master builder, that might be something like the event in the game where you have an opportunity to build something at a much lower cost, and construction sabotage probably is going to slow down your building. We'll see. Research economy tech. This is a lot like this military tech here, but as you notice, there are no random events with this. It just increases the spread of economy tech. So your fourth member on your council, and arguably one of the most important and powerful members of your council, is your Spymaster. Your Spymaster is an unofficial position on the council. However, it's responsible for all matters of intrigue and skullduggery. So the Spymaster does not get any prestige, but gets a pretty hefty salary. Your Spymaster can do some very important things, and you will probably, this is probably the council member that you will be switching around the most, because all of these are useful. Every single one of them is very useful. The first thing he can do is he can scheme. Scheming means to dispatch your Spymaster to discourage vassals from associating with factions, or to recruit new members for your own faction. This will also increase the likelihood of uncovering plots of local nobles, plot discovery chance plus 14%. Your nobles are going to plot. They're going to try to do skullduggerous actions of their own. Some of them will be against you, some of them will be against other people. You want to know about these things. The reason is, well, if it's against you, you want to take action. If it's against somebody else, you still might want to take action. Gives you a really good excuse to arrest somebody for being dishonorable. So he's got a score of 14, which is pretty good. So he gives us a plus 14% plot discovery chance for whatever county he's in. And he's a 32% chance to uncover plots. There's a 4% chance that thugs will attack him. There's also a 35% chance to discourage a vassal from joining factions, which we'll talk more about factions later. And a 35% chance to get a noble to join your faction. Now, if you are the top dog in your kingdom, so like right now we are the petty king of Mumu. There is nobody in Mumu above us, so we will not be starting any factions. You can only faction if you're under somebody. So we can kind of forget about that for now. Build spy network. Have your Spymaster focus his attention on the local nobles in a county, increasing the likelihood of intrigue events against them. So, if there was, say, somebody in a county that we wanted to maybe we wanted to have a reason to arrest them. You know, maybe we want to spread some rumors about them, make them look very dishonorable, so we can have a justification to arrest them, and then we can throw them in jail, and then we can hold them in jail, or maybe they'll resist arrest and they'll revolt against us, and then, well, they're a traitor to the kingdom. Oh, and we go to war with them and we beat them down, and then we get to take their titles. We have a 16% chance to spread rumors about them. We have a 16% chance to uncover corruption. That's per year. The last thing, and this is probably the thing that most beginners probably should be focusing on the most, is just to study technology. Send your Spymaster to study technological marvels in a county, increasing the chance of spreading them to your capital. So what you do is you send them to somebody who is technologically more advanced than you, and you get somebody who has a 14, we'd get a 21% chance a year that we would get a pop. An event pop where we would get a 33% chance for each different kind of technology to get 50 additional tech points. It's very, very good. And don't let this fool you. Just because it says 21.3% chance yearly, it can happen multiple times in a year. It can also not happen in a year. I've seen it happen, quite often. So this is something that's very, very, very important, especially if you're only a count, because count level can't even accrue technology. But we'll talk more about that later. Last person is your court chaplain. Your court chaplain is your personal advisor on matters of faith, but does not necessarily have to belong to the clergy. So your court chaplain doesn't have to be a bishop, but a lot of times he will be a bishop, because your bishops have the highest learning score, which is the score that goes along with this. So you can do three things with your court chaplain. You can proselytize, which means you send your court chaplain to tend to the lost souls in a province, converting heretics and infidels. So there's a chance in Crusader Kings 2 that you can have a heresy that can spring up in a county. There are different heresies depending on what religion you are. Some of the more prominent ones for Catholicism are like Lollard, Waldenesian, and Fraticelli. So those heresies are are bad, because if you are a Catholic kingdom and you have a county that is converted over to Fraticelli or Lollard or whatever, there's a chance that they can raise up a revolt against you to try to get you to change the kingdom's religion. And usually the stacks of people that come from that, while they're not very well trained, they're huge. So you want to jump on that grenade. So what you do is you send your court chaplain to that county, and he proselytizes there. So there's for this guy who has a score of 14, there's a 26% chance that he will convert that county religion every year, which is pretty good. There's a 43% chance that he can convert the religion of a single person. You know, sometimes for whatever reason, you might have somebody come to your court who is either a heretic or maybe is just of a different religion. Now, there's lots of different religions in Crusader Kings 2. But there also are some negatives. Heathens could attack the court chaplain, and you could have a heretic noble that could spawn up randomly. So, research cultural tech, basically same thing as this and this. It increases the spread of culture, and there's a chance that you could have a great philosopher or a heretic find. Great philosopher is an event where you pay some gold but you get some culture tech. Heretic find is where your court chaplain basically comes under the influence of a heretic and tries to convert you over to that heresy. Yeah. And then improved religious relations is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You dispatch this person to a location to improve the religious relations between you and that religious figure. Typically, what this is best used for is to improve the relations with the papacy. You can send him to Rome and increase the opinion of the Pope in regard to you, which is not unimportant. You certainly wouldn't want to get excommunicated. So we have a 21% chance to improve relations with the priest. We have a 16% chance to decrease relations between the priest and the spiritual leader. So I don't know that this works, if that second one works if you send them to Rome, because it's kind of hard to make the Pope not like the Pope. But what that means is, say we've got a bishop here, and we send this guy to here, there is a 16% chance that instead of making that priest like us more, we will instead make that priest like the Pope less, if that makes any sense. So, all right, well, that is an awful lot that I've given you to digest. So I think that's probably a damn good spot for us to stop. And if you have any questions about anything that I've went over, if there's anything that you feel like I've missed, or anything that you feel like you would like for me to go into more so, feel free to ask questions in the comments below. I do have hundreds of hours of experience with Crusader Kings 2, but that does not necessarily mean that I know the answers to everything. I mean, just as we saw, there are things that I've never done before, like I've never overseen construction before, and I have tons of time in this game. So feel free to ask questions. If I don't know the answer, chances are I probably will just go ahead and look it up for you and find it out and give you the information. So thank you guys for checking out this series. If you like it, I would urge you to go ahead and click that thumbs up button for me. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. And since this is the first video of a series that I feel like could be potentially helpful to grow our Crusader Kings 2 community, as amazing as our community is right now, it could always get bigger and better. Share it. If you know somebody that has been thinking about getting into Crusader Kings 2 and you feel like I'm doing a good job of explaining it for a beginner, share this video with them. And maybe, they won't go crazy with all this information that I'm laying on you guys. So thank you guys for joining me. And until next time, game on.